Well, hello and welcome to the unofficial Unreal Engine podcast, where we talk about all things Unreal Engine and also loving beagles and loving bagels. We're your hosts. My name's Alex, and I have a special guest host today, the mysterious JJ. Ooh, we're going to learn more about JJ. But first, what's going on today? It's been a couple weeks since we've had an episode, and we are going to be talking about GDC. We're going to be talking about announcements for 5.4. I'm going to talk about a fun surprise that I had having a watch party at my office while watching some of the announcements at GDC. And it's going to be great. But let's get started. Let's just give JJ a quick chance to say hi. Say hello, JJ.
Hi, I'm JJ.
And lots of points if you already know who JJ is. Quite a big deal, if I may say so myself. A real get, someone who I first got to meet in person at Unreal Fest back in October. And we've been really excited to get her here on the podcast for a while. So we'll start with our usual run of show questions, and then we'll find out a little bit more. So JJ, first we're going to have a little bit of a word association game. Does that sound okay to you?
Yeah, that's good.
I'm going to say a word. You're going to say first thing that comes to mind. And home.
Beagle.
Work.
Fun.
Food.
Bagels.
Travel.
A lot of it.
Unreal Engine.
Incredible.
Fortnite.
Even more fun.
Awesome answers. How do you take your coffee if you drink coffee?
Straight up, just black.
Perfect. Favorite time of day?
Sunset or sunrise? Usually sunrise.
Yeah. If you can be awake for it. I unfortunately usually am sleeping during sunrise.
I had the benefit of recently when we were traveling with GDC to be awake, 3 hours earlier than I normally am. So I was up for sunrise every morning.
That's fantastic. I'm jealous. That sounds really great. And then lastly, when was the last time you laughed, or a time when you were particularly tickled by a joke or something that happened?
Oh boy, GDC was full of laughs. But probably earlier this morning, just watching my dog, she was being absolutely ridiculous, rolling around on her back. Yeah, this morning I was laughing for quite a while.
Yeah, that's great. I love dogs. Our dog recently recovered from surgery, and so it was very sad for a while because he had to be in a proper cone. He had to stay in a pen. He, had stitches all up his leg for like an ACL surgery, and he's just kind of coming off of that and able to be more active. And he's definitely really thrilled to be allowed to be out and about. So yes, our furry friends are absolutely wonderful. How old is your beagle, and what's his or her name?
She just turned 5. Her name's Frankie.
Frankie. That's awesome.
She's pretty cute. She's a small beagle, so she's like a pocket beagle. She's pretty little, and she's got really beautiful coloring, almost spotted.
And where did Frankie come from?
A place in Kingston, Ontario. It's like a few hours from where I live.
Right, and I guess it's worth asking, where are you calling from tonight?
I'm in Canada, in the lovely town of Waterloo, Ontario. So
Waterloo,
some people
Ontario.
might know where Waterloo is from, but they definitely remember the Blackberry, and that's where I live. Is the home of the Blackberry.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to see the Blackberry movie?
Yes, I did. It was great. It was pretty funny. I mean, it was more of a parody and like an extreme take on it, but it was very accurate in a lot of ways.
They captured the spirit of it, even if the actual day-to-day events and dialogue weren't quite there. It felt pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, so everyone waiting with bated breath. This is, in fact, Jessica Jean Armstrong, yo JJ, on Fortnite, and the founder and CEO. I don't actually know your title for more games. So how about we now hand over the floor a little bit to JJ, and you can introduce yourself properly. And I'm very excited to learn more about you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alex. So I am the chief operating officer and one of the co-founders of 404 Creative. We're a completely self-taught, self-funded studio made entirely from Fortnite Creative. We're about 3.5 years old. I always forget how old we are, but we've been making games in Fortnite since it came out, so about five years. And we all found each other through the game, built a business together, and had a clear need of businesses or brands wanting to do work in Fortnite, and developed a company entirely based around that. More about me personally, like in my work, I am kind of I do a lot of everything. Um, I do a lot of technical art, some verse programming, but a lot of day to day operations, managing a team. We've got 9 developers. Um, at the same time, like, yeah, I just basically wear whatever hats I can to get the job done and love being creative and love being able to develop my own games. My personal games have like 200 million plays in Fortnite, so it's like a crazy high number. But the new games that we're developing with our team are still, we're still working on that growth, but developing like I don't know how many games. Like we've probably done about a dozen this year or more.
Wow. That's crazy. What's the general timeline it takes you to do a game from conception to completion?
It really depends on the game. For example, the recently the NPC device came to UEFN and Fortnite Creative. So when that came out, we initially knew we wanted to build a project with it. So we were just
Mm.
messing around, having a good time, trying to figure out what the best way to use it is. And in about a day or two, we had a rough outline of a game. A week later, we had a core game loop and the entire environment basically built out. And then the rest of it was programming, testing, uh, you know, level design improvements and balancing. And then we
Yeah.
ultimately released it released it a few weeks ago, but it took probably 4 weeks to make.
That's incredible. Yeah, Fortnite is one of these things that I have only lightly understood over the past few years. Jacob, of course, understands Fortnite much better than me, and I would jump in every once in a while. And then, especially as more creator tools started to become available, and UEFN in particular was announced, a little over a year ago, it seemed like this tremendous opportunity, but was so foreign to my understanding of Unreal Engine that I figured, like, I'll sit back, I'll watch some pros dive right in. And you've definitely been one of those pros who's been really fun to watch. So tell me a little bit about what it was like to be working before the announcement of UEFN, and then what came to mind when that first came about, and then what the time right after that felt like.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I mean, when up until like up until UEFN was coming out, we were lucky enough to be part of the alpha program. So being able to get our hands on the tools early, give early access feedback and everything with really no leg up on competition aside from just understanding the tools. But anybody who's able to develop or like get their hands on Unreal Engine could learn a lot of the same things we were able to learn because it was so close to Unreal Engine, just a really pared down version. But it was super scary because I had never touched game development tools. I had purely existed in game development from a Fortnite creative perspective, which is really a sandbox environment. That's a lot simpler. So it was super scary for our whole studio. None of us really expected to really pick up the tool so quickly. Um, and this was a testament to how easy the Unreal Engine toolset, the basics can be to learn, and how many resources there really are. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, super scary up until it happened, and then blew ourselves away that we were able to adopt it so quickly. Um, about a month or two after it released, we developed a really awesome game, speedrun game in about 3 weeks, which used custom models and uh, great first programming, basically a ton of like Niagara particles, things we'd never had our hands on before. So we were really able to dive in and make some super powerful visual experiences that looked absolutely nothing like Fortnite.
Yeah, and on a similar note, was there a particular moment, maybe in the development of that speedrun game, where you just kind of had this like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this works and it feels good and it's vibing." Anything come to mind for that?
Well, with that one, it was really great because the best part about it is the iteration. So how
Mm,
fast it is to iterate from I've got an idea, I've got a level, and now I can test it in multiplayer, or I can test it with other players, or I can get somebody actually in the game to see what do they do. Can they complete it? Does it make sense to them? So it definitely really changes your perspective on game design because you really are so user focused. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to hold anyone's hand. They're going to get their hands on your game, and if it's not intuitive or easy to understand, yeah, it's that you just got to make that part simple. So that was like one of those aha moments. I was like, wow, UEFN. I did not expect it to integrate into the Fortnite creative workflow so easily to be able to test it and bring in other players and work with others, especially revision control, because
yeah. Oh,
that was our we were used to all of us joining an island together, We'd join a party and all be floating around with our characters, like, with our little phones, placing things around the world. Um, and then instead, we were able to actually push changes, sync
Yeah.
changes. Like, it was crazy.
We are begging for Epic to like bring that same source control method over to Unreal Engine because it just works so seamlessly in UEFN, and there's still not like a great way in Unreal Engine. People use Perforce and Plastic and GitHub, and all of them have pros and cons. But the kind of out of the box way that Fortnite lets you just work together is really incredible.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the other things with like UEFN that's so awesome is it is a testing grounds, or it feels like it is an early place for things that are going to eventually come to UE or really be part of the larger UE ecosystem. A lot of times they're probably going to be coming to UEFN first or tested there in some way, um, and that's definitely no exception.
Yeah. When you come up with an idea for a game, and I actually want to hear also about what that conceptualization process looks like, how much does the idea change over the course of time once you start to build it and test it and get feedback from other players?
It really depends. It really depends on the game itself, but like, so if it's a competitive game, that one's heavily influenced by player feedback. So,
Mm,
if we're going to develop a game that's more like a battle royale, we're going to really need a heavy amount of testing. So,
yeah.
multiple sessions over time of like large lobbies with vocal players who can say like, "There's not enough of this. We need more of that," and really call out issues with the level design or like loot availability or things like that. But if you're developing something like, uh, a speed run, uh, you're not going to be as reliant on like a large player base. You're
Mhm.
developing something that's more of like a wave based survival. You're going to need a variety of player types. Like there's a lot of variables, but when it comes to ideation, we go with what's fun. So we
Yeah.
usually find like the NPCs. We developed a game that was just like waves of gators that you just fight
Mhm.
waves of alligators in a yeah. It's actually a hilarious game. It's a 100 days in Florida, and you're
Mm.
defending a gas station from waves of alligators. It's pretty fun. But that emerged from I was playing with a free asset pack that I got from the eBay marketplace and the new NPC device at the time, and we all just loved the little alligator. Oh, sorry, I should say I'm exposing myself here, but it's actually a crocodile.
Ah,
But it was a
okay.
free asset, so I went with it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's so once we saw the cute little crocodile, we were like, we have to make a game based on this. And that was a purely 100% inspiration from that for that game.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love when something that already exists can spawn more ideas. I've been chatting a lot with my friends at the Ferryman Collective, who's like a VR theater troupe, and they've now done a couple shows where they started with a world like in VR chat that really inspired them, and then they kind of spawned their stories out of that. So it's really cool when something like an asset can inspire something in that vein. Let's also rewind a little bit, JJ. I'd love to hear a little bit about your background. What were you like as a kid? What did you study at school? What were your passions? And then how did you get to the point of founding 404 Creative?
So we're gonna cover the whole breadth of it. We're gonna talk about okay, no, as a kid, I was like super curious, always out and
Yeah.
about doing things that I shouldn't be doing. Really not like listening a lot and very space cadet, like always
Yeah.
out my own world. Out at 5 in the morning when I'm like 6 years old, like my parents are like, "What are you doing?" But like things like that. So definitely kind of treaded my own path there. But growing up, I was like really always wanted to be creative. So I did a lot of woodworking in my lifetime.
Oh, cool.
A lot of creating with my hands, like, fun, building things, like building ponds in my dad's backyard and things like that. Um,
Building ponds like
Ponds, like
water,
literally like with fish in
digging
them.
holes.
We have two ponds that we built, like
Oh,
my
wow.
brother and my dad and I built together in our backyard that are full of koi fish.
Cool.
So another like, yeah, little random tidbit, but it from like being super creative throughout school and everything, spending a lot of my time doing like DIY projects, a lot of stuff with my hands. I never was able to find a path that was like super creative. I was always searching for it, like searching for
Mhm.
what's this thing that I can constantly be creative and get my hands on.
Yeah.
That's always going to be fresh and different
Mhm.
and new. And I couldn't find it. So continue. Went to school for business management.
Mhm.
And that was more of a logical decision being like, everything involves business. So let's go to
Yeah.
business school. which turned out to be really valuable now that I am, you know, running a
Running a
business.
business.
And uh, so I took that degree, graduated from the University of Western Ontario, and then I didn't apply for jobs because I did not know what I wanted to do at that point. So I just went home, worked at a shoe store, tried to figure out what I wanted to do, ended up finding my way to software development and game design, or sorry, software development and user experience design. So I
Mhm.
spent most of my early career developing websites, like doing a lot of UX work with agencies and small startups, and slowly became a product manager for a small startup. Then that quickly ballooned into I love startups. I want to be involved in this space. And then I was laid off, and that was the kicker. I was like, it was like 2018. I'm laid off from my job, and
Mhm.
Fortnite Creative had just come out, and Fortnite was
Oh,
just booming. So I found my way to Fortnite, and I had all this free time on my hands, and it was impossible to get a job as a UX designer. And Fortnite just landed in my lap. And about a year into that, while going back to school to skill up, um, one of my games what just like went viral somehow and did extremely well in a matter of weeks. I had a few like features in Fortnite Creative back then that were hubs. I don't know if anybody remembers those. If anyone played Creative or Fortnite, where there was a hub island where you could load and you'd see all these different maps you could play and load into. Um, that no longer exists. But when we did have that, creators would make and submit them to Epic. They would select really beautiful environments. Mine was like this really cool clock tower environment. Like it was probably the coolest thing I've ever built physically. It was like a giant world of clocks. Like it was just awesome. It was very ethereal, like futuristic in a way, like these portals everywhere and time travel stuff. I don't know, super fun. But that was featured, and one of my games featured in that took off. And then I was able to graduate school without looking for a job because I was adequately paid by this.
wow.
Um, and then snowballed. We shortly after that developed 404 Creative with our co-founding team, which is actually quite a huge team. There's about six co-founders actually
Hmm.
that we all built it up from the ground up, invested our time and energy and money, and uh, from there on, there's a lot more to it, but that's more current day stuff. So
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit about that founding process, especially with such a large founding team. Like, what were the different skill sets that you were all bringing to the table, and what made you guys decide that you could work well together?
it was super organic, and it wasn't really like, looking back, I'm like, that was not a logical business decision, thinking like, "Hey, we're gonna have 6 founders," or whatever, but, well, really, there were 8 of us, but I'm not gonna get into that. There's 8 of us, there's 6 of us left, whatever, but we all started working on this, like, as everyone had full-time jobs already. So,
Mm.
like, our CEO, he was an accountant, many of our team members are musicians and, uh teachers and like all came from wildly different backgrounds. But we're doing this on the side. So once we were able to find ourselves in a position where we're earning some real money, that we many of us were able to actually just leave our jobs. Uh,
So cool.
yeah. So over time, one person left, another person left. It was just kind of a snowball effect. But we found each other more, uh, like as that founding team, more out of our camaraderie or similarities in player understanding, like visual like fidelity, and really our taste there.
Mm.
But also just everybody has a unique skill set. Like quite a few people are really mechanically inclined, so there are programmers. There's tons of extremely talented visual designers that we have. Uh, Many of our guys are really great level designers. So in terms of blocking out the island, our process is strikingly similar to a traditional pipeline, but it's just a lot faster and probably a lot less detail.
Yeah, I mean, even just hearing you describe a little bit of how you go through a game, my first thought was like, oh, sounds a lot like a traditional game development studio. So I was curious if any members of your team actually came from more traditional game development backgrounds.
Yeah, we never did, but we all learned a lot of these things as we go. So I'm the only one with a really strong technical background, like being
Mm.
user experience design, software development, like web design, all those fun things. Um, and then with the business background, like it kind of blended together to put me in this position. But a lot of the like everyone else is just really everyone's resourceful. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of things like the entire game development community is known for just being resourceful and like learning and creating content and learning from other people's content. So uh, our CEO is our lead. He's like our main level designer. So
Mm.
he's somehow emerged as like really a strong player. He loved playing the games and he knew them so well that it translated pretty easily for his type to be able to convert those into like strong levels and take those skills and develop them and learn how to do gray blocks and learn how to do or gray box. I don't know. That's a
Yeah,
gray blocks.
there's definitely gray blocks involved.
Yeah, there's gray blocks involved in gray boxing, right?
That's great. I think certainly a lot of times when a company is failing or not doing as well, I often see one of the problems being that the leading team isn't involved enough in, the day-to-day operations, and especially for something creative, being in the weeds of, how to actually make the product work. So I'm not surprised to hear that you have that level of involvement even with your CEO. So I'm sure we have a lot of people listening who are maybe, students or people in jobs where they're like, I love Fortnite and I wish there were a way that I could turn this passion into a real career. What advice might you give someone who would love to kind of follow in your footsteps a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a great place to get started if you want to be a game developer in your future because we've learned a lot of the skills that people applying at AAA studios have, but they just have degrees for, or they have different backgrounds or different portfolio pieces. So if you want to work in development, start with UEFN. We'll start with Fortnite Creative, honestly, because
Mm,
Fortnite Creative will teach you a lot of the basics and essentials, and you can do that from a console.
yeah.
You don't even need a PC. So if you're, you know, you don't have a PC, we'll start there. I started on a PS4 and I made the majority of my money on a PS4.
So
Um,
cool.
and then was able to buy a PC and then level up to this place. But when it comes to if you want to get started in this, start with Fortnite Creative or UEFN if you have access to it. Jump right into UEFN if you can. If you have a UE background or if you really believe that you want to work at a studio or even one of these Fortnite creative studios, because there's a lot of us. Um, just jump in and get started and lean on the community because the community is really helpful and supportive. But there's a million resources out there to teach you how to build your own games, and even Epic provided resources that will give you a full on tutorial about how to build your first box fight or something like that.
Yeah. And I'm sure, when you're hiring, you must look at, GPAs and resume and what universities did you go to?
Never actually.
I'm exactly. What's your hiring process look like?
Yeah, we so with our entire team, never glanced at a resume. I don't even know where people went to school. It's kind of a lovely thing. Like we check out our people, obviously, but you know what I mean. We That's not a criteria that we really go by. And a lot of studios are like this. Uh, they'll look into more of like firstly the cultural fit and like how you fit with the team is really important because we work
Mm,
together every day. We have to have a extremely strong level of communication because we're 100% remote. We don't have an office, and we're all across 4 time zones. So communication
oh,
is key. 4 time zones, but it's only 4 hours. So,
mm.
um,
No one's in Japan.
yeah, exactly. But um, yeah, it's definitely something that I didn't expect to not hire people based on purely just like their portfolio, but that's exactly what we do. It's really based on what you can do. Like there's people I've wanted to hire and I don't even know enough about them, but I just know that they can produce what we need.
Yeah.
And that's what really matters at the end of the day.
That's really cool. And I'm curious to hear a little bit about that distributed team working relationship as well. Like, are you guys on Slack or Discord? And do you spend a lot of time literally just in Fortnite together, interacting that way? What's that process look like?
Yeah, we're pretty much Discord is our office. So we have our, we do daily stand-ups. So
Mm,
because I come from the software development world, I used to be the scrum master. So I used to be the person running those daily stand-ups and those lovely meetings. Um, but we don't have a crazy amount of meetings. We stick to one 15-minute meeting in the morning at the
great.
start of our day and go through our classic stand-ups and done doing next and blocked and move on from there. And my job is largely to unblock people and then do my tasks. But yeah, we'll work really well together in just a voice chat, or we'll separate into our own pods if there's small groups of people. Because on certain projects we may have 3 people, other projects we have like 2 or one person at that moment. But we'll usually separate. We come and go as we please. We let people know, but it's pretty casual, and but we do have the like general expectation that people are there on roughly at business hours and to contribute on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. That makes sense. I want to go briefly back to something you said earlier about when you're developing a game and you need testing. You mentioned that you do a lot of local testing. And I meant to ask, do you literally mean like you get people in Waterloo into a room to try to do it together? Or is it just some kind of closed testing before a game becomes completely public on Fortnite?
Yeah, so there could be two things. So, I don't think I'd ever get people into a room in my city, but I could. That's actually not a bad idea. But at the same time, the players are super accessible online. So because we have like we've grown a Discord community, we know a lot of other people with Discord communities, and our clients often can buy their communities to be able to test things as we're developing them. But we, because we're a team of 9 people, we can be our testing people a lot of the time, and we're already signed on all the proper documentation, so we don't get any content leaks if it's something for a brand project. Um, but yeah, we'll run our own tests internally. We generally test the games that we're developing on a day to day basis. So every single day, we the goal is to run it and test improvements and see what the improvements are the next day and what the new list is for the next day, pretty much.
Yeah. That's amazing. And because you brought up client work, I'd love to hear you describe a little bit about how you balance, the games that are coming internally where you guys are just really passionate about building a thing on your own Steam versus when you decide to take on different client projects and what those look like, and also how you say no to things.
Yeah, saying no to things is getting easier over time, but when it comes to balancing the two, it's definitely a challenge for anybody new entering the space. Getting brand work is really challenging unless you have a good portfolio, or if you have connections, or you're able to display your the quality of your work. That's always going to be helping you get those clients. But original projects are the best way to actually earn money in the space. So we do they're it's the most risk, but it's the most rewarding at the same time, right? So you can develop something for a few weeks and it could completely go viral, or you could develop something for 6 months and it doesn't get any players. So you've
Mhm.
got to be careful about how much resources you're really putting into these original projects. And we try to balance that with our income. So when we have brand projects coming in, we'll usually try to balance the so we set aside time for ourselves essentially throughout the development. That's kind of baked in, so we have the time and the tools that we need to experiment and really provide the best product to our clients. That's the most up to date. That's the newest features added and those types of things. But we get that skill and the knowledge from doing our original games.
Yeah. And do you often pursue clients and you say, oh, geez, the Lamborghini, they should really have a Fortnite experience and we should explain to them why that would be a good thing for them? Or do people come to you? And then what does that discussion look like for, actually laying out what the experience will be?
Early on, we were really doing a lot of more outbound um, contacting and like really just reaching out to people through connections, not necessarily cold calling, but like reaching out to people that we knew had a great opportunity in the space. And now we're pretty much entirely inbound.
Mm.
We don't our client funnel is just coming to us at this point.
Yeah.
Um,
Good place to be.
it's a nice place to be, and it has been like that for some time. We're lucky enough to be a really great like client. Sorry, we were lucky enough that Epic is one of our clients that you know, that we do a lot of first party content for them, which I probably can't get into detail about, but I can talk about the fact we were able to develop some tracks for their rocket racing release,
Yeah.
and so that was featured in their announcement video for the new rocket racing tools. So things like that are specific like brand projects that we tend to do, but lucky enough, most inbound.
That's excellent. And I do want to mention to our audience that yeah, JJ was featured on the main stage during Unreal Fest, and so there's some really good footage of her talking a little bit about her work over there. I didn't know about the rocket racing thing though. That's really exciting. Can you talk a little bit about, and you don't have to name a specific client, but like generically what that kind of discussion might be like to figure out what the end result of what they're going to want is? Because I'm speculating here, But I imagine some clients, they want a Fortnite world to have a Fortnite world, and they don't necessarily understand what makes a good Fortnite world. So I wonder how you kind of guide them to the right place.
Yeah, that's definitely spot on. When it comes to saying no to clients, like you mentioned before, we typically, quite honestly, say no to clients that don't understand the Fortnite space.
Mm,
If they don't understand the value that it has, and really the true value comes from the combat games in Fortnite.
yeah.
So if they don't understand that, they're typically not the best clients to work with. They're still good clients. Like they still can develop a great world. But we know that's not where the like long term success can be. So it generally comes from goal driven perspective, and that can be one of two things. So it can be a specific activation that's a really competitive game. That the goal is to create a great game for the Fortnite audience, or it could be something that's more of like, hey, this is a PR splash. We want to create our brand in Fortnite. We want to do some activation around, like, say we're, Mr. Clean, and we're going to do a Mr. Clean scrubby map or whatever. Um, we're going to create that experience. Maybe not the most impactful in terms of generating a huge audience, but it's a great brand plug. It's a great PR splash for whatever they're doing, or whatever they're wanting to promote at that time. So it depends on the goals. But those longer term competitive experiences have a lot more upkeep because the goal is to keep them going.
Yeah. That's amazing. I could talk to you for hours, JJ, about just this whole world of, because it's like it's related to kind of the spaces I'm operating in with Unreal Engine, but in some ways it's so different. So thank you for sharing so much of this process. I think we should turn our attention a little bit to GDC, which I unfortunately was not able to attend to this year. So I would like to live vicariously through you and ask you how it was. Did you have a good time?
I did have a good time. It was very very interesting this year to see. So last year there was a UEFN announcement at the State of Unreal.
Mhm.
But there's no content really around. There's very limited content around UEFN. Let's say there's some, but not much. This year there was actually quite a lot of content around UEFN. There was sessions pretty much every day, except for Monday and Tuesday. So that was really really great to see. And primarily coming from the UEFN perspective, that's why I attended. Is there's a lot of special talks and great people to meet in the ecosystem. Um, and really start to meet the faces behind all of these creations that we see on a day to day basis. Uh, but yeah, tons of crazy cool announcements coming. I'm just really excited for UEFN to start to get more tastes of what is possible in UE with metahumans and
Mm,
uh, the cloth simulation. Like
yeah.
that's a new thing that I think is available now. There's going to be physics coming soon to UEFN, like crazy stuff. Um, yeah, the whole event kind of blew me away in a lot of ways, just because it was more about, like, felt like we were more at home. And last year when we attended, I was like, "Am I supposed to be here? Like, am I?" It's like
That's
someone to call
imposter
me out.
syndrome.
Yeah, and now this year I'm like, "Hey, this is actually," I felt like it was a true. I was more of a game developer this year. I felt that way.
Ah, that's really cool. I'm glad to hear that. Were there any particular announcements where you were very surprised or taken aback by, like, "Oh, that's a thing now"?
Well, I mean, maybe not surprised by, but well, actually, that's not true. Fortnite has notoriously been shy from first person mode,
Mm,
and
yes.
that was announced that it is coming soon. So there's already some camera devices that can slightly enable you to do that without the weapon visibility or without your player character being partially in the frame. But there's actually a true first person device that's supposed to be coming. So that was insanely exciting. That got me very excited because our team develops a lot of competitive games,
Mhm.
and that is really like for first shooters. Like we can't wait to get into that in Fortnite.
Yeah, that's really exciting. The metahuman stuff was very cool to me. In fact, one of the reasons why after GDC I pulled my whole team together and I was like, "We're gonna have a day of working in UEFN," came from the frustration of us realizing that the work had been done to make metahumans, 100 megabytes or whatever in UEFN, and they look great, and it's like
Yeah,
really well done. And yet, there's no way to do that in Unreal Engine yet. Metahumans in Unreal Engine are still a minimum of like 1.5 gigabytes.
it's
I tried like every
huge.
way to migrate from one side to the other. And
Oh, it
because
doesn't
we do
work that
so,
way.
yeah, it's one direction. You can only go from
Interesting.
Unreal to UEFN, never the other direction, or at least I haven't figured out a way. And because we do so much work with metahumans, it was kind of like, okay, if metahumans are most exciting right now in UEFN, we have to at least start taking like a bunch of our recorded animations and mocap work and theater work
Yes,
and start to bring it over to UEFN. So that's
absolutely.
energizing for us. Yeah.
Oh my god, there's so much you could do, like, with that. There's the yeah, that's super exciting. I was blown away because I did not expect that announcement, at
Mm.
all. The because I firsthand had tried to work with many humans in UEFN, and it was just like, it did not work.
No.
There's nothing you could do. There was some little things you could do, but it was not, you couldn't do anything else. All you could have is one metahuman in your island. Or like, even if you could get it there. Um, but now there's actually the possibility of those being much more useful and coming from the brand activation space. That's insanely valuable for us. Being able to really plug in characters and people and uh, make it really more identifiable for the the ownership of that island.
Yeah, and it's just so simple, for lack of a better term. Like I have, hours of videos on YouTube trying to help people deal with all the complexities of like retargeting animations to metahuman skeletons, and oh, now the head is detached, and now here's what you have to do to make the body work with head rotation. And this might be literally the first UEFN tutorial I ever upload. I opened the stand-up comedy template, which has a character going through a routine on stage through sequencer and bouncing between all these other characters. And I was like, I wonder how hard it will be to insert a metahuman into this. And so I opened up the metahuman importer, brought in a character, took 3 minutes. Again, it's super small. And then I was able to open up that sequencer, drag the metahuman into the middle of it, grab the animation that was already attached to the other characters, and then it's just working. The face is working, the body is working, nothing's detached.
It's
It's
crazy.
seamlessly. It's great. It's so good how easy it is, and I'm so jealous that that's not the case in Unreal yet.
Yeah, and I do think that it's a two-way street, right? Like as things come to UEFN, a lot of times like if the more people from UE come to this community and say, "Wow, you have that, like we want that," and they're vocal about it, like my expectation is that they'll listen. Over time, if enough people are vocal saying, "Hey, like revision control," maybe people have been vocal about that, and it'll come eventually too. But I think that that's really important because it really expresses that need, and perhaps like Epic hasn't fully considered like that the value of having the option for these really tiny metahumans, because you could create some pretty condensed games for certain platforms or certain experiences with these tiny metahumans that can really improve your performance.
Oh yeah.
And what are
Yeah,
you
we
really missing out on, right?
exactly. Like for all the stuff we do with metahumans, had our, annual production of Christmas Carol, which has a bunch of metahumans, and we spent a ton of time like manually going in and scaling down the textures and, optimizing the meshes and stripping out some of the LODs. And that was a lot of manual labor that is kind of just working out of the box now in UEFN. So yeah, there's one thing I was surprised wasn't announced at GDC that I told everyone like this has to be ready for prime time, was I really thought Fab was going to be coming to Unreal Engine because it's so good in UEFN. Do you use it
I
much?
actually don't use it that much.
Oh, okay.
So I don't use it that much, but that's largely because a lot of the assets we honestly lean on the Fortnite assets a lot because
Cool.
they're cooked already, they're optimized,
It's free, right?
they're free and they're
Yeah.
built in, and you can do some smart things with texture data and swapping those between. So Fortnite building props have this. I don't know if that's the common thing in like any UE tools, that having this texture data for
Mm.
blueprinted items. But you can put these building texture data from other things onto, you can make use of the Fortnite props pretty extensively, and it saves you a lot of island memory.
Yeah.
The other hand, you get a lot more fidelity, like higher fidelity, like better detail, better quality meshes, and by importing your own. But we often have, like, we have one of our guys models a lot of stuff, or we'll use the free assets from the marketplace, which some of it's available in Fab, but we usually just find it's easier to manage it ourselves. Um,
That makes a ton of sense.
yeah, but I do find it's really useful. Fab is the best for people who are coming from Fortnite Creative, and they don't have a lot of assets, or they want quick and easy assets to use. It's a great place to start.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and it's been great for us because we're pretty familiar with like what's in the Megascans library and some of these things that are already accessible in the Unreal Engine side, and then we just do the same thing over in UEFN. But I have definitely had trouble with the memory limits. Pretty much anytime I bring over a map. from Unreal Engine. And there is, some cleanup. I need to go and delete all the blueprints and, material functions that aren't going to work in Fortnite. I still find that I've always seemed to be over the memory. And besides just deleting things, I haven't found a really clean way to help with memory. And you've already mentioned, JJ, that, sticking with Fortnite assets as much as possible helps with that. Do you have any other quick tips on memory management?
Well, actually, I'm gonna call out there's a talk that, and I'm trying to remember what it was called. Achieving realistic visual styles in UEFN
Mm.
was the name of the talk at GDC. I, who knows when those sessions will be uploaded, or if that I expect that one to be, because it was a fantastic talk, and they definitely should share all of those details. But they primarily relied on kit bashing.
Oh, cool.
So do you know the kit bash 3D guys?
I do. Yeah. I have a funny story
Guys and
about that. I'll
gals?
tell in a second, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I believe it was a lot of their assets that they used in that. I could be wrong, but it looked like a lot of things that I've seen before through their work. Um, but they all of their assets are like little individual bits and pieces. I think that entire map that they showed was absolutely stunning, and it
Mm.
was like 29 props in the whole map. And so they had these 29 props with like very few. I think they even made like basically like did like one or two textures. Like I don't know how they did it. It blew me away. But it was the most like highly optimized game, but with the highest fidelity that I've ever seen in UEFN. And it was like insane what they were able to achieve. But it
Mhm.
boils down to really like smart uses of the tools that we have access to. Um, I think they created like a smart material. I don't know enough about materials to go into it, but the material that they used for their instancing for all of their props was so intelligent that they can apply all these different shapes, textures, designs, create apply decals in little and wear and tear, all with like this one material that was like the base.
Wow.
So it was really, really smart and efficient use of resources. And the kit bashing really helps to cut down on textures as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And good news for our listeners. This talk that JJ is referencing just went up on YouTube 18 hours ago, and it's an
Amazing.
hour long and it looks fantastic. So we'll put a link to this particular talk in the description of the episode. Thanks for calling that out, JJ. And I guess worth asking any other talks in a similar vein that you would recommend people keep an eye out for.
Well, I don't know that it'll be out either, but there was a talk on the scene graph. So
Yes.
coming this new experimental scene graph coming to UEFN in the near future. Who knows?
Mhm.
Um, but that was pretty incredible because I saw lots of UE devs come and ask questions about it and really being excited about this. Um, you know,
Can you describe what the scene graph is for anyone unfamiliar?
So I'm probably gonna butcher it, but really it's it's a way to identify all of the elements in the scene and be able to manipulate them, make them appear, disappear. You have a lot more control of every item in your every actor, I guess, or entity and component in your game. So you're able to you just have so much more flexibility, and it's especially coming from a programming perspective with verse, being able to tie those things together and make things appear, disappear, dispose of them. I don't know. I probably am not the expert on that kind of thing, but when it comes down to it, it was a feature that was so exciting for everybody in the room, from UEFN uh, devs to UE devs, in that it will massively increase our ability to create programmatically, you know, programmatic devices and programmatic interactions, and also reduce our use of assets and manage like copies of things in a smarter way. So if I have like a million lampposts, I don't have to use a blueprint anymore because I want to use the scene graph system that they have of components and entities to be able to update that and adjust each one individually. Yeah, there's just so much power to it. I really hope that talk goes up because that one I think would really blow a lot of people away.
Mm, that sounds great. Yeah. Yeah, I know a lot of us were like, "What do you mean there's no blueprints inside UEFN?" Because of course, there's a lot of ways blueprints become useful, not just the coding side, but also just the ability to have instanced changes and components and that sort of thing. So it seems like, among many other things, Scene Graph starts to add some of that functionality.
Yeah, I think we have blueprints to some degree, but they're not the blueprints like systems that you're probably familiar with working with. It's really we have the blueprint item, but not the way of programming.
Yeah, makes sense. One thing I heard mixed feedback on that was announced was that you might remember better than me. They said at some point Fortnite is going to actually be new seasons are going to be made in UEFN, and some people were like, "Oh, that means that they're not going to be as good or as exciting because fewer tools or whatever." How did that announcement resonate with you?
So for me, I honestly think that's the best possible decision that they could
Yeah.
make, for a lot of reasons, but largely because when when you're forced to use the tool, you find issues with it, you realize its flaws, its strengths, where to optimize and where to draw, like pull back from, and you could make the right decisions as to what you need to develop a game to the scale of battle royale, and ultimately enable people in the community to develop games of that scale. And that like those in-depth projects with these like crazy high level of details that we cannot do. Like we're so limited by things like that. Um,
Wait.
to create a map of that scale would be extremely like it's almost impossible right now. You could do it probably, but it's really, really hard and you have to pare down a lot. But once they're forced to use the tools in this way and they have to develop more around the VFN system to adapt to their needs, I think the tool's just gonna be immensely better for it.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I agree. By the way, JJ, just out of curiosity, because you spend so much time working with these tools in an engine and testing things, do you ever play Fortnite or Rocket Racing or Lego Fortnite just for fun, or does it feel like it can't be fun because you associate it with work?
I don't know, like, so I my entire team, they play a ton of games, like, they're
Yeah,
all about it. For me, I play some games. I mostly play the games that I'm testing, because usually I'm very, like, I need, kind of a singular focus for a lot of things, but
yeah.
I do play a lot of I did used to play a lot of the Fortnite Lego,
Mhm.
but to me, like, creating is, like, the game for me, like, it's so fun to just get in there and create something and mess around because 'cause I'll be able to test it on the fly and come up with a new idea and build it out pretty quickly. But yeah, I'm like the worst. I don't play that much, but I used to play it every season, get to the max battle pass and everything. But you know, you gotta
Yeah.
work.
I know, it's true. I have only ever been pulled into, like, playing Fortnite properly, when there have been IP that I'm really attached to. So, when Attack on Titan was there, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I have to get all the Attack on Titan stuff." And then recently, there was the dual combo of Metal Gear Solid and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which were both big things from my childhood. So, I found myself, like, very hardcore trying to complete all those missions, and then once I had everything, like, I haven't touched it since.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't. I miss those Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle challenges. I
There's a
regret
lot of
it all the time.
lots of slime.
I
Yeah.
know, I miss it. I wish I did it. But yeah, that's those things you miss out on. But that's the best part, like about this like pseudo metaverse environment that's kind of being put together is that it's like it is the place that you can get those things, right? Like you can bring in those characters. I can be, I can be Peter Griffin for lack of a better example, and play around with like Goku and uh, Alien versus Predator. Like it's hilarious, and it's what brings people to the game, and it's part of the reason it has such a massive audience.
Yeah. Yeah, I recently, rewatched, Ready Player One, and of course, I read the book when it first came out, and the movie was like, "Yeah, this is fine," but rewatching it inside an Apple Vision Pro in full 3D was really very powerful. In fact, all 3D movies look incredible in an Apple Vision Pro. But it did strike me this time around how much Fortnite has delivered on kind of the promise of, all your favorite IP and all your favorite characters coexisting within that same world. And in the same way that I think before the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, people just couldn't conceptualize all sorts of different cartoon characters from different IPs and different companies living in the same movie. The way Fortnite has kind of broken down those walls I think is setting a really important precedent for the future of entertainment. Yeah,
I agree, and what a great call out to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, like, that's it, like, that's it truly is what I think about a lot of times when I think about Fortnite, and how it has come together to be this, like, weird amalgamation of all these different universes, but seriously, that's, like, such a good example because that was, way ahead of its time.
yeah, Yeah, and a lot of people thought that movie was never even get made. There's a lot of good podcasts out there that break down like all the things that went wrong during the production
It's
process
an
there.
incredible feat though. What they did to
Yeah.
develop that, like, crazy.
Yeah, and in general, like you understand when companies want to be protective of their IP, and so not having minute control over every line a character says, and I mean, even just the starting premise of Fortnite, like all these characters are going to have guns and running around
Right.
shooting things. You would think that would be an anathema to so many IPs, and yet, Epic found a way to make it attractive.
Yeah, exactly, and for like, that really is the situation we're in because 'cause we're seeing all these brands who are they don't care about that as much anymore, and they're really just investing in it because it's where the marketing is for a lot of these things, and it's engaged marketing. It's not just billboards and seeing this and, this thing used by somebody, it's engaging with the product or engaging with the characters or the people or the stories that you love.
Yeah. Yeah, have you been surprised by how much, Fortnite and by extension UEFN have taken off, or from your earliest days in it, did it always feel like something special to you?
It definitely always felt like something special because it was like largely the community was like so great back then. It was like pretty small group of creators. It always felt really special and a great place to be creative and to take chances and do something different.
Mm,
But I had no idea. I had always hoped that it would like grow and become something that I could do for a career. But at that point, it wasn't clear because it was really they weren't transferable skills in the same way that they are now. They were largely soft skills. And now it's like,
mm.
okay, I've got these soft skills I'm learning for building this business with my team, but also a lot of these like actual hard skills that are like, being able to understand materials, write code, and, create post process volumes, all that fun stuff. Like those are things that we've learned, but I never expected that it would evolve in the way that it did. But when the announcement was made, I could definitely see where Epic was coming from, and like this is a great pipeline for creating more developers and building more independent studios. And uh, the amount of studios that have emerged just from Fortnite Creative is pretty insane. I wish there was numbers around that, but
Yeah. Yeah, and the pipeline, like you already mentioned it, even before someone goes into buying an expensive computer and downloading Fortnite and going into UEFN, Fortnite Creative is a great place to start. And for the longest time, I was thinking like, well, the best thing about Fortnite Creative is that it can eventually ramp someone up into learning Unreal Engine. That felt to me like the natural end goal of everything. But it's found how as the tools have continued to expand for UEFN, the Unreal Engine end goal feels less like an end goal and more just like another option. Like, yes, you can go from UEFN to working in Unreal Engine and working with a studio, but as I think you're a fantastic example of, like, you don't need to go that far. You can do so much with the tools and features available, even just in UEFN.
yeah, if you want to develop a game like an indie game, like there's a great example from and they did a there's a video on YouTube about them. Like it Fortnite created a spotlight on them. It's the company Future Trash. You've probably seen some of their stuff, but they have these little cute characters called Fodes, and
Mm,
they're little like explosive devices that are like cute and funny and dumb, and we love them. And so the Future Trash team and the Fode, brand, they came into the space as Fode. The Fode game is a Steam game
mm,
that it's a right now it's like a early access thing. It's a pretty straightforward speed run game, but super awesome, like really, really creative and beautiful IP, like super recognizable IP. And they brought that into Fortnite shortly after the UEFN announcement. And this year they were like mentioned in pretty much every UEFN talk. Like they ran a mixer for all the creators to come. They expected like 40 people to show up, like 300 showed up. It was pretty wild. And they were pursuing the indie path. And they took a chance on Fortnite Creative and really their IP just connected with the audience and they developed the right experiences. Um, that I think that any indie studio looking to pursue developing a multiplayer game specifically should experiment with Fortnite, period, and test ideas there.
that's awesome. Yeah, yeah, and I'm so glad we're having this conversation, JJ, because you are giving me all of the energy that I need to like really start to do more of the stuff in UEFN because we have so many things that like they're an Unreal Engine because that's our natural go-to tool, but so many of it could either be ported into UEFN or we really could even be starting there and there's no reason to be in Unreal Engine at all. So, the more complex Unreal Engine gets and the more certain tools have different failure states. I want to say the cleanness and the simplicity of everything from like multiplayer working and source control working, and even the direction that something like Verse is going. There's something really attractive about all the streamlining that seems to come from UEFN.
Yeah, it eliminates a lot of that heavy lifting, especially for multiplayer stuff, because I know that that's a really hefty lift
Yeah,
on the indie side. Um, Even just like managing servers and like having that to be even something you have to consider thinking about is like like I don't know. Like that was just a whole layer of complexity. I'm like, I want to focus on the game, right?
yeah,
And even for any of the work that you guys do, the benefit of having engagement and people be able to say, hey, here's an item code, pop it in, see what we did.
hmm
And you can get real stats on how many people played it, how long they played it for. You can get some even custom analytics of certain actions that they do. Um, so it's a super powerful learning tool for if you're trying to identify or evaluate or test an idea or identify your audience and get some real feedback from it.
yeah.
And you could just hop into a game with other people and be like, "Hey, do you like this? Is this clear?" And they'll be like, "No," or they'll be like,
Yeah.
"Yes." Like,
Yeah. Oh man. You're being so generous with your time, JJ. I want to make sure we get through everything on our agenda. I'm going to tell two quick stories. While I'm doing that, you can get ready with something that I'm really excited for, which is JJ is going to give us a little tutorial on something that I've been very intimidated by, which is Verse. Is Verse like C sharp? Is it like C++? Is it like Python? How easy is it actually, or how complicated is it? We're going to find out, and I'm so eager to see this. So two quick stories. One going back to the Kit Bash thing, because JJ said, you know what Kit Bash is? Yes. And I will always be embarrassed anytime I hear Kit Bash now, because at Unreal Fest last year, the one where JJ and I got to hang out, I was in the elevator with someone and we're going down and I had my conference badge on. And this very tall gentleman across from me in the elevator says, "Oh, are you enjoying the conference?" And he just said it in a way that made me feel like he had no idea what it was. And so, in a very patronizing way, I was kind of like, "Oh, do you know what Unreal Engine is?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm the founder of Kit Bash. Do you know what Kit Bash is?" I was like, "Yes, I know what Kit Bash is." And I just wanted to like sink into the floor when we had, 20 more stories to go down in the hotel elevator. So
that's
I
funny.
will always be embarrassed by that. But he was a good sport about it. And, I think we laughed it off by the end. But boy, yeah, that was embarrassing. The other thing I want to mention really quickly is so GDC, I had a bunch of my remote team members in our office in New York City. We had a really good week. We did hikes in the Hudson Valley and all sorts of good stuff, good team building stuff. But during the GDC State of Unreal, we had a little bit of a watch party, and I had no idea what was going to be announced. I was curious how much we'd see for UEFN, for Unreal Engine. We had some bets on whether we would feel like Unreal Engine 5.4 or UEFN was getting more love. I think we all agreed UEFN was, a little more on that side, though motion graphics tools and all that are certainly exciting. No mention of Apple Vision Pro, but yes, Apple Vision Pro is working better and better in 5.4. But the thing that started the state of Unreal, which was this announcement from Amy Hennig of Uncharted fame for this new Marvel game, Marvel 1949. I did almost a literal spit take when they're showing, Captain America, Black Panther. Look at this incredible work done in MetaHuman Animator. It looks so good, right, JJ?
I can't even believe I didn't like talk about that because that honestly like floored me. That and the Chronos game that was announced,
Yeah.
that MMO, I think it was an MMO type game. Like both of those were mind blowing. Firstly, that IP and that Chronos game was like looks fantastic. Can't wait to play it. But the Marvel stuff was like really jaw dropping. Like when like we fully thought that was like a movie, and then we are like, wait, this is a game.
Yeah.
So and the fact that they were doing
All
a
real.
live demo, like, of, like, going through and being able oh my god, it blew me away, of what could potentially come down our pipeline eventually in UEFN, like, more of those intelligent features, like, with the ground tessellation and everything is so, so powerful.
Yeah, the announcement that we were I think from what Amy Hennig said, we were looking at a game that is actively being developed in 5.4, which I think is very rare. You wouldn't work in a game engine at that level of newness. I'm sure most of the games being developed in Unreal Engine right now, they're using 5.2, maybe 5.3, because they want something that's stable. So I think, that's a testament to how confident they're feeling about these new features, that they would be in a version of the engine that is in very active development.
Yeah, and definitely I think that that's a way of battle testing it in a really large scale way, to be able to identify the needs of this like power user, the person who's really going to max out all these features and what's possible, what's the engine is capable of, to ensure that others using it at a different scale or a lower scale are not going to they're going to be a lot of those issues are going to be solved for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so here's where things got crazy. So they're showing the demo of Captain America, Black Panther, and then Amy says, "Oh, by the way, we've got the actors who are playing Captain America and Black Panther here in the audience." And it cuts to the audience, and this is where I almost did my spit take because Carrie Payton, I know who Carrie Payton is. He's been in all these incredible games. He's Black Panther. He's an incredibly talented voice actor. And then Drew Moorline, who is playing Captain America, JJ, he was my roommate.
What? Really?
Yeah, it was so strange. He was the first person my wife and I, girlfriend at the time, lived with when we came to New York City in 2010. I had done set design in college at Syracuse for a production of Equus. He played Dysart, the psychiatrist, and we, got along. I can't say we were like best friends, but we got along, and he was nice enough to let us live with him when we came to New York and we're looking for a place to stay. And just a totally stand-up guy, incredible actor. I've lightly followed his career over the years, and it was so cool to see him there at GDC showing off metahumans, this thing that I've been, actively teaching on behalf of Unreal. I was at Unreal Fest last year teaching MetaHuman Animator and all that. And to suddenly see like the tippy top pinnacle of what this technology is capable of being done by my former roommate was such a trip.
That's really funny. That's not where I expected you to go with that at all. Because I was just like, oh my god, when they removed his mask, like, whoa! When they removed the Black Panther's mask, like that's what I was like really, really blown away by. But that's actually so funny.
Yeah.
That's too bad he
Yeah,
couldn't
and
have been there.
apparently I went down a little bit more of a rabbit hole of like, what has Drew been up to lately? And I realized I hadn't noticed that he was also the CEO in Horizon Forbidden West, and there's a nice digital double of him in that game, which is the Decima engine, not Unreal Engine, but he's great in that. And then apparently there's a bunch of rumors that he's actually starring in GTA 6 because people
Oh.
heard the voice in the trailer and then they're comparing it to some footage of him. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But either way, real happy for Drew getting some good work in the video game industry.
That's so exciting. Yeah, that the announcements that came from that, the stuff that was aside from UEFN, like blew me out of the water.
Yeah.
What's coming and what's coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, really good stuff. All right, let's talk verse. I'm going to do a full screen. I hope our audio listeners will consider popping over to the YouTube channel to see what JJ is going to show us. And JJ, take it away.
Yeah, sounds good. So I'm going to kind of try to approach this from the ground up and write it basically from my little helper file here to make sure I'm doing it right. But I would like to preface this with I used to be a software developer myself, but Verse is a language that I'm fairly new to. I started learning it last year, and last year when it came out, and have more recently been learning this for the past, like, I don't know, 8 weeks, 9 weeks. And in those 9 weeks, I've really like skilled up massively. So it's really possible, especially if you have a aptitude for code and you understand a lot of the language, it's really possible for you to get in and get started pretty fast. But what I'm going to do is just some basic setup right now. And in terms of, I'm going to launch this game when I'm done. So I want it to be a nice view because the goal of what we're going to do is I want to make a little NPC character follow me around. So in order to do that, I would like to have an orbit camera and a third person control camera. These are two of the camera devices that are available in Fortnite. Right now there's three. There's fixed angle, fixed point, and orbit, and soon to be the first person one as well. So these are some great things that actually give you a ton of control over your camera. And that's definitely one of those things that's really to help you develop new game types that may not exist in Fortnite or in this world here. I'm just going to change this so that it's more zoomed out for me and more centered. And I actually have vision control disabled because it's faster, but that fancy feature.
I'd never thought about disabling revision control. That's a pro tip.
Yeah, I actually disable revision control for any testing projects because then it's a lot faster in terms of saving. I don't know about launching, but you do run the risk of like, yeah, it's not, you might have some issues, but if it's an experimental thing, yeah, anything you're working with other people, I always have it on. Well, you need to. Um, all right, so we've got our two basics down, and the other thing that I'm going to need that is what I'm going to be referencing in the verse device I create is what's called the NPC device. So it's an NPC spawner, and you can see this guy here. Just got a little Jonesy character. You can actually customize this to your liking with the NPC character definition. So this is the device itself. In the details panel, it's got quite a lot of options in it. The few things I changed on the right off the bat is just make it spawn instantly. So I changed that spawn timer to 0 seconds, and that's pretty much all you're going to need to do. And create that NPC character definition. So let me just do that again. There's the NPC character definition. You just create a new one, and I will call this test NPC. And once I create that, it will be available to me in my content browser. And this has a variety of options with it. You can select which type it is. And this is all super necessary because I'll be referencing what this device itself does in the verse code. So these devices, if for anyone who's not aware, they're prepackaged little, chunks that can do things like these camera controls, like granting weapons or things like that, and managing when players are eliminated or when certain characters are eliminated. So they're super powerful because they're canned and ready for you to use in certain ways. So just to get started and to make this example really straightforward, I'm going to use a guard, which is the Fortnite guards. They just follow you around. I'm going to make it team 1, so it's on my team and it's not going to shoot at me. Because by default, when I spawn into the world, I will be on team 1. All right, so we've got our basics. We've got our camera set up, and we've got our NPC character. So now to the fun part is we create our verse device. If you've never used Verse before, you'll have to bring up the Verse Explorer. It's not available in Window, as you might think. It's in the Verse tab, and that'll bring up your list of files. You just right-click on content to create a new file. We're going to just call this NPC follow NPC headers. I guess I should say NPC follow.
I was going to ask what the naming conventions are.
I know I try to be clear, with what I'm doing, but when I'm testing, I just want to be able to look at it and be like, okay, I know what this is. Right. But if it was for something for a game, it'd probably be like game manager or, whatever specific name of game manager, along with whatever other devices I want to create. And you almost always want to use the create basic. You're not creating it empty because you'll have to fill in quite a bunch of additional pieces there.
Yeah.
So now that I've created it, I guess I have two options. I can either open it from here. I can go to Visual Studio Code and open it right up. But if I double click it in the Verse Explorer, it'll just pop open. And it's got a lot of default code. So I delete all this garbage right now for that. And if you type return or block, you can get rid of any of those errors if you don't want to see that. So jumping right into it, there's a few things that we'll definitely need in our using statement. So if you are familiar with writing like, HTML or anything, you're going to be used to putting these statements at the top. And these are just referencing different libraries that are available through Verse, Unreal Engine or Fortnite. And certain things will need them. But the core thing with Verse and Fortnite devices is something called editables. And these are ways to connect these physical devices we have with your program and your code here. So type in editable. And then I think you just got to put it on a new line. We'll just do NPC and NPC spawner. And then what I'm going to do is reference the name of the device. So the device here is called NPC spawner device when I click it. And I'm going to want to find that in the verse digest. So I lied.
What is the digest, by the way?
Great question. So the verse, actually, I went to the wrong place. So the Fortnite digest goes over all the devices and a lot of the, different ways that you can interact with them. The verse digest has a lot of, it's got all of the core things. Like it goes over all of the different like functions that are pre-baked for you into verse. Things like, moving, like teleporting something to a player or teleporting something to a specific vector point or whatever it may be. Getting specific information that's provided by Fortnite already. So it's a really complicated thing to like jump in and like try to be like, I'm going to read the Fortnite digest or I'm going to read it. But if you understand code, you'll jump in and be like, oh, this is perfectly clear what is going on and what's happening once you understand the syntax of these different these different tags and what these are called, like identifiers. And yeah, it's where all the power is that you can lean on. So I'm going to go to the Fortnite digest actually and look for the NPC spawner device, and that is coming up here. So any device that I want to find that's in that Fortnite creative devices folder will appear. It'll have its different events associated with it in this digest. So, but I need the name of the device so that I can identify it here. So what I'm doing here is just creating the editable, which is allowing me to, I'll demonstrate, allowing me to create a device. So now that I've done this, I've saved this, all I've done is put this editable device in here. I can go into UEFN and build my verse code. And what that'll do is take all that code and make sure it's in our system here. And there's going to be a folder called creative devices that is created. And you can drag that verse class into your world. So this is my verse code, basically.
Cool.
And now I have this fancy little thing here that says NPC spawner. So that's the editable I've added. And by it being editable, I can now edit the content of it and assign this to the NPC spawner. So now this NPC spawner is directly associated with my verse device, and whatever I type in the code, I can call this, and that particular one will do whatever I tell it to in here. So for time-based purposes, I'm probably just going to speed through it and just get it working. But it'll probably just be interesting for those who know what we're doing here to see what's happening.
Yeah.
I'm just creating some functions right now for the two actions that I'm going to need to fill in. So I've got a setup function and a follow player function. For both of these, it needs what's called a suspends identifier. And that will suspends basically if the code has to stop or if I'm going to need to await something to happen or doing an action like navigating to something, there's going to be pauses in that code. So I need to allow the code to suspend. And the syntax in verse is quite hard to get used to at first, but once you do understand it, is pretty straightforward and it's very easy to pick up. Oh man, there's so much to explain with this stuff, eh?
It's great. You're doing an awesome job.
In Fortnite, there's they refer to players and NPCs and everything as agents a lot. So agent is typically what we use in for our own variables when we're defining things like this because it's clear with their system. What I'm doing now is just setting my own variable for the NPC. So I'm trying to say that I want to get the NPC spawner itself, and I want this to be the agent. So this guy here is going to be my agent. And to do that, I'm just going to do my NPC spawner. And then from here, the NPC spawner has those functions. And I hold down control. I can click on that to bring it to me directly to the event. And it has a spawned event, which is something that's listenable. So that means I can await something to happen there. I can subscribe to it, which is another term that I'm not going to talk about subscription. I'm going to talk about awaiting because that's my chosen method of waiting for something to happen.
Mm.
So from here, I want this to be my agent, and I'm going to await when that spawn event happens. And so here I'm just going to put my if statement. I'm going to get the fort character, which is another term that's used to, it's basically what the Fortnite character is. And
Is a fort character like a subclass of an agent?
I don't know. Fort character, is that in here or is it in here? Yeah, so I don't know. I honestly don't even know how to explain the agent fort character stuff because it takes a little bit to wrap your head around, but the fort character is the specific character information. So there's some layers to it. You often need to get the agent and the fort character and use them in separate ways. So for example, this one, I'm using the agent and then getting the fort character, which is a function that I'm using. I need to add the specifier. So I'm going to copy over these specifiers really quickly. So these are two using statements I need to be able to use this get fort character, which is the characters library, and the AI library is something that is for the navigate to navigatable interface, which is what we'll need to bring the player, have the NPC follow the player.
Real quick, JJ, how did you copy and paste those so quick? Where did they come from?
Oh, those ones came from a helper sheet that I have so that I didn't have to type them out.
Whoa,
But yeah, a lot of us actually have macros for these. So we'll have macros set up for building these, but for the most part, it will actually tell you. So if I comment this out, it will tell you exactly what you need.
Mm-hmm.
And saying, okay, that's the member get for character in agent, but you need this using statement. So you can usually just remember it and retype it. But
yeah,
that's the one thing. Sorry?
Good use of macros just to have that ready to go.
Yeah, a lot of people, there's some pretty clever tools that some of these developers have put together. All right, so navigatable, there's the navigatable interface, which I need to define again my own variable for this. So I've got my fort character, which I just defined above to be this agent get fort character. So for this, I'm actually not, it's confusing because I'm not getting the Fortnite character. I'm getting the fort character information from this NPC agent.
Mm.
And that's what we'll be navigating to the player character. So fort character dot get navigatable. And this is the other one that is available in the Fortnite Digest. So get the navigatable interface for the specified character. And then once I have those things, and those are successful, I want to trigger my follow player function with the navigatable as the, what is this called right now? This is the information I'm going to pass through and into this function.
Parameter?
The parameter, that's the word. Yep. And this is a navigatable of type navigatable.
Really?
So that for setup, that's all I need to do to get that information. And there's literally only 3 more lines of code.
Cool.
So we loop the interaction of finding the player's location and sending the navigatable agent to the target. So I want to first get the player from the play space, which if you're trying to learn more about this, I don't want to dive into explaining that one because that's kind of a big thing. But you'll want to learn about getting play space, get players. Like these function here are extremely valuable, and you'll use them constantly. But again, the syntax might not make sense, but you'll get used to it after you type a lot. So I'm going to type if my player variable equals get play space dot get player. I need to define my target, which is the navigation target and player, and that's the double. Oh, yeah. So that's literally the entire code.
Cool.
And yeah, this will just follow a player around. So let me just demonstrate that. And I can probably at the same time demonstrate a second one. Let's do something a little creative because I want to show you guys something that's the best feature about the NPC devices that you can bring in your own models.
Oh, cool.
So like these are some of all, there's like tons of different ones that we have or that I've brought in, but there's a couple great animal variety packs. We can bring in our crocodile, or we can let's bring in a cute little unicorn.
Why not?
And the nice thing too, I don't know if anyone's ever run into this, you may have difficulty with physics assets being brought over from Unreal Engine, but you can always recreate them in UEFN, and it will work. As opposed to if you try to import them, it'll break. I don't know why. But that's really important if you're trying to create things that collide with each other or collide with the player.
Yeah.
So I'll create this extra one, and then now that I've got my whole world, I'm gonna make sure I build my verse code again, and then I launch a session. And now I'll be able to test: does this work? Does it follow me around? Does it do what I want it to do?
Wow.
Right?
I just so much about verse. That was great, JJ.
Yeah, there's with verse, like again, like this is something that you can. There's a great community out there, and if you are a programmer, like reach out to me. I'm happy to like help guide you in the right direction or anything, or like point you towards some like good resources. But the Twitter community is the best place to go. Talk about what you're doing, share examples of what you're making. There's a great guy out there. His name's Tom Jank. He's gonna laugh at me because he's like, you always talk about me, but I do. His work is so awesome. He does daily warm-ups in verse. So every day he'll post some new code and everything. And our entire team and our programmers are like, they want to be able to do that, but we've got working hard and doing some crazy stuff. But he'll post this really innovative stuff that is things that people haven't seen or people haven't considered making or haven't tried to do. And it really, yeah, it's super inspiring for first developers.
And I recently stumbled on the snippet section of verse on the Unreal Engine documentation site. Would you be comfortable sharing the snippets?
So absolutely. Yeah. So what I can do is after we're done here, I'll just put it up on the forums in a snippet, and you can get the link.
Awesome. All right, we're in Fortnite.
Yeah. So now we're in Fortnite. I've got all my friendly devices here that I need. Let's hope I didn't miss a step. And we can start the game and see what happens.
Yeah.
So I've got my nice camera here. Oh, hey buddy, why aren't you? So that didn't work.
A tightrope act of a live
Dang.
I think it's really useful though to say like, okay, something weird happened. What would be your first step for troubleshooting now?
My first step for troubleshooting is going to be to compare this with my for me right now, compare this with my other version of it.
Yeah.
And see what step I had missed. Because this really should, my favorite quote in game development, it should just work. But so I've got him on the right team. I've got this spawning correctly. I've got him referenced in here. and I've got the code referenced. Let's see. Card, default behavior. Well, let's just see if this works. If I replace it. This one. Part of me wonders if by adding this dude, I'm making it hard on myself.
Because you were being creative.
Yeah, right. So I'll build my code. Make sure I've got my NPC spawner in there.
And it's okay that you still have revision control off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, revision control with the Fortnite, like this, it really only has to do with if I'm sharing, like if I have a project that I'm sharing with anybody else, and then we want to be able to deal with conflict resolution, like or asset management that way. Like if there's any conflicts between the work that we're doing, if we're making sure that we're not working on something that somebody else is also doing. So you can easily just push changes each time, so you don't have to launch a Fortnite session every time, which is nice.
Yeah.
Let's see if this works. And if it doesn't, then we can fake it and I'll just pull up the one that I know does work.
Sure. Yeah. And then we'll just have a little note in the episode notes of like, here was the thing JJ discovered 5 minutes later that was
like I'm actually really concerned as to why it wouldn't work, because like I figured it out. I don't call the setup function.
Oh no.
So I created my functions, but I don't actually call the function that I need.
There we go.
So there we go. Easy mistake. I was like, maybe I should just check the code real quick.
Yeah. So for our Unreal Engine users, especially anyone just listening over audio, it's the equivalent of if you, in Unreal Engine you had a very important custom event that needs to be called on begin play, and you created the custom event, but you don't actually call it on begin play.
Exactly. Very common mistake. I do it all the time, but that's nice, it's easy to fix. And this actually allows me to show you another beautiful feature for verse programmers. So I can build this verse code. And since I have no new changes in my world here, I can actually just push the verse changes. And it's nearly instant.
Cool.
So because it's only a code update, doesn't need to load all the assets and everything. So it's really, really beneficial.
Wow.
Alrighty.
There we go. Hey. The unicorn. Amazing.
I got my guard and my unicorn following me.
Yeah, it's working. So cool.
So the orbit camera is nice for this, just because then I could see behind me without I'm going to turn around every 2 seconds. But then
because in traditional Fortnite, can you orbit like that?
No. So if I disable that or just like delete the device, those are some of the best devices that we've got recently. Are these camera controls? So I remove those. You'll see this clear difference.
Right, and that looks more like traditional Fortnite.
Yeah. So if I want to see them following me, I gotta literally turn around and walk backwards.
Cool.
And so that makes my unicorn look a little strange.
Yeah,
because I'm walking so slow. The unicorn itself, like I do want to call out this really quickly, and then I think that's pretty much the majority of what I want to cover. I could go into so much more detail here because I've experimented with these guys a ton. But like all you can do like elephants, you can create like any different like I created like a bunch of these guys. Pretty much every animal, any animal. We got our gobbler, we got our crocodile, we got our crow. Crow doesn't have good materials, I guess. We got our hippo, and in each of these, there's quite a lot of setup that goes into these. So that's something that at a later date, I'm sure I could like create an actual tutorial for. And if I do, I will let you know.
Yeah.
but these all have animations associated with them. So the let me find my hippo. And there's a movement blueprint class that you can create. So there's an animation preset, basic locomotion, and you can. So this is the movement associated with my NPC device. So I have these pre-baked animations that are just for idle, run, and I actually only have run for all four of these because they're basically the same for what I have for this project.
Yeah.
So if you do have custom animations for those things, this you can actually use those without using the custom first behavior to manage animations.
Cool.
Yeah, there's crazy,
And so
crazy possibilities.
if you were to refresh now, would all of those animals be following you?
You know what? I could do that in but 30 seconds.
Cool. Yeah, let's see it. It'll be a fun little Noah's Ark
Oh,
scenario.
actually, I discovered an error. And also another good call out is because I had done that. This is my NPC playground. I do a lot of random stuff with NPCs. I didn't notice that the unicorn itself is actually using the custom burst behavior,
Oh.
and not the. So it's using an NPC behavior script that our team wrote, and this is a little bit more in depth.
Oh,
It
wow.
essentially does a lot of the same things that one does, but
Mhm.
it's actually just finding the closest player to travel to.
Yeah.
So this is a more convoluted, complex way of doing that, but there's the way to create the NPC behavior. There's actually pre-baked um, starter scripts that you can go from. So the basic that just has begin and end functions,
Mhm.
or a more complicated behavior script that has a lot of. I haven't dove into this, so I don't really know fully what it does, but a lot more complicated and a lot more in depth. But you can create this and associate it with your character and write some custom behaviors. But even if I were to remove that, it would still do the. Um, it should still act exactly like I expect it to. Let me put this in. Yeah. We've got our unicorn. Now let's add. Honestly, I should do an array for this, but I'm not going to.
Yeah. Right. And they all just need unique variable names.
Yeah, so if I were to do an array for this, it would be a lot more like an array, the syntax for it is pretty similar. So I would just do an editable um so I could do NPC spawners, right? And then I would just do array.
Yep.
Oh man, I haven't wrote this in so long. Array. I need a square brackets here.
Square brackets. There you go.
No.
No, doesn't want square brackets. No.
Oh,
So, not enough.
I think it's backwards.
Oh. Huh? One of the
Embarrassing.
That's okay.
Let's find the array.
Oh man.
I don't know. Why can't
Yeah,
I write
and
a array syntax?
don't feel bad. Like I recently went back to Unity, and it had been a while, and I needed to dive into some C# code that was like very natural to me 10 years ago, and it was like I can't remember
Ah,
the like basic things right now. There you go. There it is.
okay. So I need. Okay.
Cool.
I have to look at it again. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. So that would be the syntax, and then I can show you what that looks like in the editor as well. It's really beneficial. Oh my god, there's so many things we could talk about with verse. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Man, it feels like we're at the very tip of an iceberg.
Yeah. So there's this little eyedropper tool. I think this is pretty common. You can use that to select these guys here. But you can see this new one. I've got my NPC spotters. I can just create as many of them as I want. I can identify each one of them, and then just the way I have to call them in here have to be rewritten.
Right, of course.
So I wouldn't use that.
Yeah, you use like some kind of for each loop or some way of getting
Exactly.
particular index
Yeah.
from the array. Yep.
Yeah. That's another. That's a whole rabbit hole for sure. But now that I've added all these NPC spawners, these guys, I actually will have to make a slight adjustment to them. Um,
And what's the difference again between the guard behavior and the wildlife behavior?
so the guard behavior is typically for these bipedal characters.
Mm.
I'm actually curious to see what's going to happen. But either way, these ones are going to follow me. But because they don't, see this guy, I need it to be custom because it's not. That's yeah. So
Mm.
I need it to be custom so that I can um identify the or sorry, make the blueprint like with the unicorn associated with it. I'm seeing some strange behavior here, so what I'm probably going to just do is nix the unicorn right now because I'm not sure if there's a bug that was introduced, but there's some elements that are missing here. Oh, just kidding.
Custom character.
That's what they call a skill issue, actually.
Skill issue?
I was having a skill issue looking for that.
Oh.
Okay, character blueprint. So, got my character blueprint and my animation preset, which is this movement, unicorn movement. So, I'll have to use this instead of the guard, but the code that I wrote will be perfect for this or any other wildlife
Yeah.
following you. Like the same thing would be for if you wanted just to have like a boar follow you around.
Mm.
Um, and there you just tell him to do that, and then we'll put these guys in here. Ugh, you'd be like, I gotta cut you off at some point.
No, that's the nice thing about having a podcast with no ad breaks or anything like that. We can go as long as we want.
Yeah. So it's so easy to add new editables like really, really fast. And I'm terrible practice here, but I'm not renaming my devices very well, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Now that I've saved and built my code, I'm using my keyboard shortcuts. So Control Shift B, Control Shift S to save everything and push everything.
Is Control Shift B to build the verse code?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Control Shift B. And I've got to push all changes because I added lots of new elements to the world. And thankfully, actually, I should have known. Let's see, can change this really quickly. So I have a device in here. There's a bug right now that's going to be fixed tomorrow. Where so that NPC, that Croc one, I shouldn't have used it because it was using much more complex code that was for that Gators project, that Florida project. So there's validation errors that were introduced in the update this week.
Gotcha.
That will be fixed tomorrow. So welcome to UEFN. You get new validation errors with your project on the regular.
We by the way, ran into a hilarious problem that I mentioned, gathering like my whole team together and being like, we're going to use UEFN. And the day we were doing that, what we found online was there was an error that day where any new computer that had never had Fortnite installed before was unable to launch UEFN. If you installed Fortnite that day and then installed UEFN and tried to launch UEFN, it would just immediately close.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to remove our friendly crocodile because I did not consider that. And it's yelling at me even though I changed the code.
Yeah.
This is the one thing that I dislike. But it's great for being able to talk about stuff that you're doing, so tutorials and podcasts and whatnot. is this lovely preparing window. So we just have to wait for the content to be pushed.
Is it possible to see like a log or anything that gives you a sense of how long it's going to prepare for?
No, but that is actually a feature I did not address, especially if you're learning about the programming. Like that's one of the best things that you could do. So you can, have your friendly print statements,
Um,
and you'll say the game started,
Right. Yes. Yeah.
and then I can push just the burst changes this time. And as soon as I start the game, we'll see that, and we also have this lovely output log that will display those in the editor in real time as well.
Yeah. That's helpful. Start game.
Well, I'm wondering, did it push everything? I think it did. Yeah. So we see the game started, guys.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Hey, nice animation on that boar. Yeah.
Boar's not on my team. That's why he's not following me.
Oh, gotcha.
But
Nice.
I may have made
That was
one error
great.
here or there somewhere.
Yeah, no, it's great, and I genuinely love the opportunity to do some training because I think sometimes when people are learning these things for the first time, when things don't work for them the first time they try, they feel like, oh, I'm such an idiot. So to have folks like you and me who are obviously very experienced with this stuff, when we can also demonstrate something that we're troubleshooting in real time, I think it's very validating.
It is very valuable. It is super valuable just to be able to problem solve like that. So
Yeah.
that's a simple issue of I want that board to be on my team, so that he doesn't chase after me or he doesn't have his typical reaction. So I could just add what's called a team modifier
Mhm.
in this NPC and give him index team one,
Oh, cool.
which I always found that confusing because I feel like an index should start at zero, but that's
Yeah,
just
they're
me.
supposed to start. What would happen if you did tell it to be zero?
I don't think it would. I think it corrects me to one.
Ah, gotcha.
But that should be that one. And it looks like our boar or our gobbler character just doesn't have his animations connected. But that's okay. Let's delete Mr. Gobbler and pretend like that didn't happen. 'Cause that's a
Yeah, this is still
bigger
super
task.
fun and seeing all the animals running around. Oh,
Yeah, it's a pretty powerful stuff. And this is the biggest game changer if you want to create something that's nothing like Fortnite. Because
yeah.
these can be used for a lot of things. You can even retarget animations to them.
Mm.
So like I don't know if it's one that I have in here, but there's a skeleton. Yeah, it looks like I do have some of it. I haven't touched it in a while, so I don't really want to dive into it. But there's a skeleton I have here that has all these custom animations, which is fantastic. But the thing that's unfortunate about it is that I have to make those animations. Like I need to know, I need for those animations to be triggered on certain behaviors, and that's a whole lot of code to write. Um, Whereas I can actually use the guard itself, and if I properly retarget the mesh um, with the IK retargeter,
Mhm.
I can actually just use the guard itself.
Oh, great.
So the guard has all of its, points that you have here to once you set up the chain mapping, it's like it does exactly what you would expect it to do. And this guy should, if we if I push this one, even though that's not connected to the verse device, he should walk around with a weapon and he might shoot me.
Cool.
But that means like I didn't have to do any of those animations with it.
Yeah,
I'm just using all the baked in animations from the Fortnite guards, which is really powerful for
man.
characters with 2 feet.
Oh, the kids don't know how hard this used to be.
It's pretty crazy. Like I'm in the same boat where I'm like, I feel so spoiled that we're
Yeah.
able to do all of this without having the crazy sense of knowledge
Mhm.
of even being able to grab free packs from the Unreal Engine store so they don't have to I can find high quality animated characters
Yeah.
using the
Oh, and
project.
probably worth mentioning another one of the announcements at GDC was there's a new sample project coming for Unreal Engine that has something like 500 AAA, mocap animations.
Yes.
And in theory, you can bring all those over to UEFN as well.
Yes, that was exactly what we were thinking. We were so excited for that because there's going to be a lot that we can do as
Yeah.
well, and that it works with the traditional like UE, like the character model,
The mannequin?
the mannequin. That's because it works so well with that. It by default, well, because that is the Fortnite character's
Right.
skeleton,
Mhm.
so we can then have even more, custom characters with these really powerful, high quality animations that look really nothing like the Fortnite characters.
Yeah. So cool.
All right, last time we'll push this and we'll see if these work.
Yeah.
If they don't, we'll post a note. But it's highly experimental. That's kind of the best part about all of this.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah. So we got those guys following us. Our hippos stopped following it. Oh, there he goes.
There he goes.
And here's my skeleton. So this is
Yeah.
using the retargeting for the
Oh,
guards.
yeah. Nice.
And it's actually it's pretty accurate. If you look close, like he's got his hands on the weapon. There's probably a few things that I could do better, but I'm also no expert when it comes to retargeting animations.
Yeah, it looks great. I mean, I wouldn't complain about that at all. And I think the thing too to keep in mind is like there are some, very popular, very exciting and fun Fortnite games that are rough around the edges. Not everything is super polished because you've already said it, JJ. Like, the goal for a lot of this stuff should be just, is it fun? And something can be very fun without being perfect.
Right? Yeah, exactly. It's it's one of those things where there's just unlimited possibilities with what you could do with just the characters alone and storytelling.
Yeah.
Um, even if it's just to have a character walk up to you, say something, do a cool little animation, and then um, maybe even do a cutscene or something, because you could do all that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think I'm going to be really excited to show you ours as we go more into UEFN. And I'm sure before we really get into the weeds of gameplay and proper interactivity, we're just going to be on the storytelling side. We're going to be trying to see how well we can use sequencer and metahuman and cutscenes and all that to have something narratively engaging.
Right. Yeah, there's so much you can do.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks so much for this demo. This is awesome.
I'm very glad that I could
Oh,
I need my orbit camera so you can see my face.
yeah, that's nice. I mean, that alone is worth its price in gold. I did not know we had the ability to bring in an orbit camera because there's so many instances where you don't always want to be stuck looking at the back of your character there.
You really don't. And like I was saying before, that was something that's mentioned. Oh, another great talk from GDC is exploring new genre. I think it was exploring new genres or new genres in UEFN, developing new genres, something like that, by Josh Grant and JV from Epic. So they talked about how important that camera device has been uh for developing new like game modes that didn't exist before, even like something like the side scrollers or
Yeah.
it, a death run, like top down death run type thing.
Mm.
Those are
Jay Villanueva.
yes.
Just
I can never remember his last name, like how to pronounce it.
so
Um,
cool.
yeah, that they're definitely, they talk about a lot of things there, and they talk about the FOD team as well.
Yeah.
Fixed point. I'm doing this so I can wave bye.
Right. We want to see a front facing goodbye wave.
I brought in the wrong camera. And this is just another quick call out. I could be here all night, I swear. But
I'm having a great time.
there's a third person camera. That's the one that I'm referring or need to have for this to work. Like I want it to.
How does it know which camera to use? Because I think you still had the orbit camera in there too, right?
So they both control different things. So the third person camera controls our let's find it. Yeah, the call out I was gonna say is you can grab all these devices from literally in Fortnite Creative, so you don't even need to push half the time.
Cool.
But the third person control will have a uh some basics associated with it. But I like as far as I understand these they work in tandem. So if like the third person is going to I mean, I'm probably not the expert to speak on this, but it's going to give you a little bit more control into like which angle you're looking at them, and like other different uh things of like how you're targeting your enemies. Some of these devices they're pretty complicated when you
Mm.
read into them, but they try to accommodate a lot of the core expectations that we'd have for a device like that. But the orbit camera specifically is like it's got all these different options of like hiding the player character, the distance you're viewing it from, the offset.
Yeah.
You can do even transitions between cameras, which is really really nice. Um, this is another cool thing you can do collision that is going to show your environment as transparent, predictive. So it might like move if you're going under a tree, it'll pull in up to your player and then pull back out when you're out of the tree.
Give me that in Unreal Engine. Why isn't that in Unreal Engine? That's so helpful.
Yeah, like a lot of these things could be baked as like as features in that way, but because of how they work in the Fortnite ecosystem, like these little chunked out devices, it's so helpful.
Yeah.
Saves us so much time and energy. There we
Well,
go.
yeah. Woo. Goodbye. Oh man.
So I have
Love it. Love it.
a bunch of skeletons shooting at my hippo pet.
I'm just trying to wave. Leave me alone. Yeah, I love the chaos behind you. That's great. One more just to get a good screenshot of that. Yeah. All right. So we can just leave that happening in the background. So to wrap up, this is the part of the show where we like to give a few shout outs. You've already done a bunch of them. We've mentioned Tom Jank. We've mentioned a few of the talks at GDC, one of which is already online. A few more. We'll put the links to the GDC schedule links, and hopefully that'll help people find when they do go online. Anyone else you'd like to call out in the UEFN world or anywhere else that deserves a shout out, JJ?
Yeah, definitely. So, firstly, I want to call out like my team's amazing. So, the people at 44 Creative are so fantastic. They inspire me. They blow me away every single day. You can check out like any of our team members. If you go to our Twitter, you can find us there. It's just 44 FNC.
Mhm.
But from the community, our lead programmer, one of our lead programmers, Twin Fortnite and EJ Dubs, both amazing. Both of them helped me like really to round out like how I was going to demonstrate what's possible in a really concise way, which went a little longer than expected, but still gave you a really well-rounded, you know, understanding of it. And
Mhm.
these two guys on my team taught me everything with verse that I couldn't learn myself. Um, aside from the community. But beyond from my team and how awesome they are, there's Tom Jank, great, the warm up guy on. I'm going to end this because it's super distracting. The
I love it.
the warm up guy on Twitter, go check out his posts. He posts crazy cool content all the time. Super exciting to see him experimenting. Tell him something you want to see him experiment with. I'm sure he'll do it. And then lastly, the team at Future Trash, like all exceptional people. You know, I could call them all out individually, but I'll probably miss somebody, and I love them all. They're amazing, developing those Fode islands and that Fode IP. So shout out to them. Check out their maps; they're fantastic. Check out our maps too, but check out theirs. They're super great.
Cool. Those are all great. My shout out for the week is going to be my pals over at CG Pro, one of only 5 premier gold authorized training centers. I have a regular authorized training center for Unreal Engine, but I attended their free UEFN intro course last night, which was really fun. And they're about to begin an 8-week course that they're offering at a discount from their usual pricing. So if anyone is interested in like a professional series of learning UEFN with some talented instructors, you can find that at becomecgpro.com/UEFN. All right, JJ, thinking toward the future, what do you hope the next few months, the next year, the next 5 years look like in this space, in this world?
That's a very good question. I really personally hope that we see a lot more creative content emerging in the Fortnite space. We see a lot of the same competitive stuff coming, and those are the ones garnering the large player bases, like those 50,000 concurrent players in these traditionally competitive modes. But I really want to see some amazing combat games or unique competitive games that come to the Fortnite space that are able to reach that level that are nothing like we've seen before. So that would be super exciting for me. What I think we'll see is a lot more of what we're seeing and more refinement of the discovery platform itself, which does kind of you know help those types of games thrive. But I'm really hoping to see a change from the Epic side that there is more of an investment in these indie content, this like really innovative, pushing the boundaries of UEFN, developing with like the most powerful tools that we have access to. Um, but I see a lot more indies coming to UEFN because there is like $320 million or something was distributed to creators over the last year.
Mind blowing. Like I can't even comprehend
Like
that.
80,000 UEFN games were released this year,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
500 a day or something. Like
Jeez. Oh my God. Yeah, it's amazing. Just that creator ecosystem. UGC in the best of ways.
and we're seeing it expand too, and just like as a very last note, like we're seeing it expand really, and it's going to grow even more because we're seeing Lego enter the space. So, like Lego is the first official IP partner with where
Right.
they're actually receiving a portion of creators' earnings. So they're going to be taking 15%. You sign into this, agree with like this agreement, and you're creating UGC with their assets and their brand. Um, but you're able to earn money on it. They just get their share. And then we see that same thing with rocket racing, being able to develop your own rocket racing maps. So I do see that happening more and more, especially with the partnership with Disney.
Yeah.
Um, that will be like the Disney properties plus the Lego properties that align with Disney. There's tons that could come from that.
Yeah, and going back to our conversation about Who Framed Roger Rabbit and the early days of those IP partnerships, Lego, of course, is a phenomenal example as well. You know, for years, uh, Lego was able to bridge all these gaps of different IPs and kind of get companies comfortable with the idea of like, well, it's Lego Batman. He's kind of his own thing. He's a little different from the other Batman. And then we saw that come to fruition in the Lego movie, big way. And so it was, I think we were all excited when the Lego partnership with Unreal Engine and Fortnite was announced. And now that this is all kind of coming full circle with those IP partnerships, it's just tremendous news for the whole community.
Yeah, in 5 years we'll have way more of those IP partners. I guarantee it.
That's great. Anything else that you'd like to say to the Unreal UEFN real time community out there in the world, JJ? It's been tremendous having you on this episode.
I definitely want to say thank you for having me. Like it's been a pleasure. I clearly love talking about what I do. I love my job. I love the people I work with, and I love this community that we're in. Um, and I definitely want to say like reach out if you have questions. Like I'm super friendly. I definitely won't ignore you. I might just forget to respond because I've got ADHD like a lot of us out there. But please reach out. If you like what we did, you can send me a tweet if you don't want to. But if you don't want to message me on a DM or something, but I always those kinds of things brighten my day. And I'm more than happy to help anybody if I can. Much like the rest of the community there is as well.
Yeah, and we'll put the links to the socials in the notes. You already mentioned Twitter 404 FNC. You of course are at YoJJ47. Any other social media handles you just want to mention out loud?
I'm all your JJ47 everywhere. It's a really cool handle, so I kept it. But 44 FNC or we're 44creative.gg if you want to check out our website. And definitely, if you do check out our website, play some of our recent games. We did shown on the screen here. It's called Lethal Business. It is very much inspired by Lethal Company, but beyond that, it's really inspired by the comedy and horror genres blending. And there's a lot of Lethal Company inspiration for sure, but we really make it feel like it's Fortnite and blend with the Fortnite universe. Super fun game to try.
Awesome. Can't wait. I'm going to make a big list of all of your worlds and all the different things that you've mentioned on this episode to go try out myself. My kids just started spring break also, so it's a good opportunity for us to dive into all of that. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks to Alan, our producer. Thanks to Vikas and the Light Twist team for our studio. We'll be back hopefully next week to hear JJ's Jacob's breakdown of his experience at GDC. Also, yes, I've heard everyone begging me for Apple Vision Pro tutorials inside Unreal Engine, so I will be doing that soon. I promise. You're all going to know how to do it. We'll do the simulator, we'll do the actual device. And thanks again, of course, to JJ for this wonderful episode, maybe the most robust tutorial we've ever gotten on the Unofficial Unreal Engine podcast. And we'll see you all next time. And I'm going to start a new tradition here, JJ. I feel compelled to do this to wrap up the show. I want to see if we can actually pull off doing like a virtual high five. So let's just see if we can orient ourselves in the right way to make it happen. Which is tough because there's also a delay for us, for anyone who doesn't know.
This way.
Oh, man. Yeah. Okay, great. I'm going to say we did it. Okay, great. Yay. Fantastic.
That was pretty close.
That was pretty close. Great. That'll be the thumbnail. Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your week and see you all soon. Goodbye.